Every night to the public meeting here. Today's date is October 18th, 2023. Just a few housekeeping. Our washrooms are down back to the left there. If anybody has their cell phones on, appreciate it. Put it on vibrator mute. So this is public meeting part one, and my name is Steve Glenn. I'm Deputy Mayor of Stratford, currently Councillor for Ward 3, Stratford T Hill also. And I welcome everyone. Thank you for attending tonight, joining us, people online. So we're online tonight. If you want to comment formally on anything from tonight's meeting, the town will accept written responses provided directly to the planning department by email or in writing until the end of today, Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Please note that the comments provided on any social media platform are not captured as part of the written submission process. There are two applications on the agenda this evening. After each application be presented tonight, there will be an open floor for any questions or comments on applications. Questions via social media will be monitored and submitted to be read in the record and answered. To ask a question, use the comment field on either your YouTube or Facebook, where you're viewing an online live stream. As this is a public meeting, you are required to provide your name and address when asking a question. At this time, I'd like to hand the floor over to Phil Rowe, Town Planner, for the first presentation. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. So the first amendment deals with it's bylaw amendment number 45N, which is addition of the use stacked townhouse to residential zones. So this proposed amendment has 5 main components, which we'll go through. So the first one is we're adding definition for stacked townhouse dwelling and amending the definitions for multi-attached dwellings and duplex dwellings. The second component is adding stacked townhouse dwellings to zones that currently permit townhouse dwellings. Component number 3 is we're adding lot development standards for stacked townhouse dwellings. Component 4 is adding parking development standards for stacked townhouse dwellings. And then 5 is a adjustment to the townhouse dwelling uses within the medium density residential 2 zone. So just a little bit of background. So stacked townhouses were first introduced to the bylaw, the zone bylaw, earlier this year when we adopted new urban core zones. However, the use was added, but there's no development standards set up, no definitions added. So that's the main purpose of this amendment, is to add the use in and have definitions and development standards. So the first component deals with definition changes. So we actually have 1 new definition, and then we revise in 2 of the others. So stacked townhouse is defined as a building containing 3 or more dwelling units that are attached side by side, 2 units high, where each unit has an independent entrance to the unit from the outside at grade. So this one we actually borrowed from Charlottetown and other municipalities in the Atlantic provinces. Currently, Charlottetown is the only other place in the island that allows stacked townhouses, but they are common on mainland. Halifax has them, a couple of other places, Nova Scotia. The 2 other definitions we're changing are the definition for duplex dwelling. So it's a building containing 2 dwellings where 1 dwelling is placed over the other in whole or in part. So it's 1 unit above the other, effectively. This was an update to a definition to align with how the planning courts have distinguished what a duplex is from a semi-detached. And then a revised definition for multi-dwelling apartments. It was listed in the definitions as multiple dwelling apartment, but elsewhere in the bylaw it was defined as multi-attached dwelling, so we're just clarifying that definition up to align with the uses. So the duplex dwelling and multi-attached dwellings are not new uses, that we're just clarifying areas that were in the bylaw. So the second component deals with adding stacked townhouse dwellings. So we're looking at adding stacked townhouse dwellings to any land use zones that currently permit townhouse dwellings. So the following zones are being affected. So you have medium density residential, the R2s, multi-unit residential, the R3, the planned unit residential, development, the PERD zone, the waterfront residential, town center residential, Mason Road residential. We have a sustainable overlay zone, and then 2 mixed-use zones, town center and Mason Road. So effectively, in terms of building footprints, stacked townhouses take up the same space as normal townhouses. It's just there's 2 units. They're vertical units as opposed to horizontal. The third component is we're establishing specific lot standards for stacked townhouses. So there are a couple of differences here between traditional townhouses and stacks. So minimum lot area, we're looking at 250 square meters per unit. A townhouse complex requires 300 per unit. So what this means is if you have a 3-row townhouse complex, you require 900 square meters, 300 square meters per unit of land. A 3-wide stacked townhouse complex, being 2 units high, actually requires a lot area of 1,500 square meters. So effectively what's going to do, it will most likely just impact new developments not having existing townhouse complexes converted over, because they typically within the town, traditional townhouse complexes built at maximum. The lot is at the minimum required. So they're typically 3-unit wide, they're 900, 950 square meters. You can't do a stacked in that area. You need 1,500 minimum for that same site. And then minimum frontage, 9 meters per stack, which is the same as for townhouses. And then the front yard, side yard, and rear yard setbacks are the same for townhouses, and then same thing with building heights. So the only real difference between a stacked townhouse and a traditional townhouse is the minimum lot area. So it works out to, in an acre, you get 13 townhouses per acre or 16 stacked townhouses per acre, townhouse units per acre. And then the fourth component deals with parking standards for stacked townhouses. So we're looking at changing up the parking a little bit. So for stacked townhouses, we're looking at 1 dedicated parking space per unit plus 1 visitor per stack. So a 3-wide stacked townhouse complex, 2 high, so 6 units, you require 9 parking spaces, 6 dedicated plus 3 visitor. If it was a currently townhouse requires 2 parking spaces per unit. So a 3-wide requires 6 parking spaces. A 3-wide stack requires 9. So it's actually reducing the required parking. And just for comparisons, in the city of Charlottetown, stacked townhouses only require 1 parking space per unit and no visitor requirements. So we're actually quite a bit higher. We're almost double that of Charlottetown. In terms of how we line up, or how this lines up with other municipalities, we're near the high end. Quite often, other municipalities say 1 dedicated plus visitors ranging between 1 visitor for every 4 units, or up to 1 per unit, or 1 per stack. So we're up near the top end. And then the last adjustment we're doing is just changing how the townhouse uses have been listed in the R2 zone. So at the moment, we have 2 uses, which one's conditional, one's special permit. And the conditional is up to 100% of a block, and the special permits are at 40% of the block. They should be reversed. So special permits are those uses which may be problematic, or whose intensity or size requires more intensive review. So it should be 40% conditional, and then 100% is special permit, which requires, if it's special permit, requires public meeting and more intensive review. So it was,
Excuse me, Phil.
yes.
Can you just explain a little bit further what problematic would be?
the problematic. Okay, so what I'll do is bring up the. Where is the? Yeah. So typically, what happens if it's a conditional use? Conditional uses just require public notification letters to go out. There's no public meeting. So the review process goes a little quicker because we just get the letters out. So it's typically a 17-day notification period. Those comments come in, and then a decision's made. With the special permit ones, you have the letters that go out plus a public hearing, and then it's a more complex process. So a conditional use would probably take maybe a couple months. If it's going through the special permit use, you're up to 3 to 4 months for review process because you have to have specific meetings in between. So the 100% of a block, so you could theoretically get, let's say if this was a room or block, you could get 100% townhouses on this block, but that should be at the highest level of review, which is special permit. At the moment, it's at conditional, which is a lower type of review that goes in. It just means that if you're trying to do 100% of a block, you actually have to go through a much intensive review. Comprehensive, we take a look at all aspects of the development. Does it fit the neighborhood, change it all altogether? If it's, so it was just, when it was put in a couple of years ago, they actually flipped it around. It should be conditional at 40%, special, which are exceptions at the 100%.
So is that a new concept, like in relationship to PURD? Is that a different category again?
The
Urban development is it different from that?
Yes, yeah. This is just in the R2 zone. The PURD has townhouses as a permitted uses out of right.
In zone 3?
In the PERD zone, in the planned unit zone, yeah.
Can any zone be?
Just, I'm just gonna, yeah, just to remind everybody that we have the questions, after Phil makes the presentation, we have an open floor for questions.
Oh.
Yeah, so we want everybody to come to the mic so everybody can hear it around the room and just give you your name and address.
Sure.
No problem. Sorry. Continue, Phil.
Yeah, okay, I was just about done. Yeah, so that was the last component was just it clears up an issue we were having with planning on the 2 uses. So that was pretty much a summary of the updates that we're proposing. This was a staff-initiated zoning bylaw amendment, not an application driven. So.
Thank you, Phil. In the opening remarks, I forgot to add Dale McKeegan, our Director of Planning for the town of Stratford, to the left here, and notice Phil here. Also with the Councillor Jody Jackson in the crowd tonight. So we'll, I guess we'll entertain questions from the floor now, I guess. Dale? Yeah. Any questions from the floor on stacked townhousing? I'll call the question.
Is there a handout being given after? Or, it's a lot to absorb at one time, at least for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a prepared handout?
No. We don't have anything at this time.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, David Dunphy, 187 Mason Road. Just a quick question on the early part there, the coverage on the stacked housing. It was 250 square meters per unit.
Yes.
Can you just kind of review that again? Like, I'm just trying to understand the coverage of the property, what it would be for a stacked unit versus townhouse and others, how it compares to the other ones?
Yeah, so I do have a diagram, which I didn't quite get to. So in terms of stacked versus traditional, so the pink box here is a minimum lot of a townhouse complex. So it's 3 units wide, and this is at 900 square meters. So the frontage is 27 meters, that's minimum, it's 9 meters per unit. And then it's required 300 square meters per unit, so 900 minimum. The blue box is for stacked townhouse complex. So that's 3 units wide, but it's 2 units high. So it's actually theoretically a 2-story building through here, minimum 2-story building. So with that, you require same frontage, 27 meters, 9 meters per stack, but the minimum lot area bumps up to 1,500 square meters, because you need 250 per unit, which is 500 per stack. 3 stacks wide gives you 1,500. So what this actually means is you'd actually have the same size buildings on the property, but you'd have more open space, more green space, parking areas, and so forth. So.
Any other questions? Yeah, thank you.
Judy McIntyre, 11 Swallow Drive. So in the larger footprint for the stacked townhouse, does that include parking?
The larger footprint, so the building, the larger lot area would also have the parking through there. So the parking required on a standard townhouse would be, so this one, being 3 units wide, would require 6 parking spaces for the pink. The blue requires minimum 9. So you'd have.
Because there's 2
Yes,
units
yeah,
for each
because you
of
need
the...
6, 1 per unit plus 1 per stack. So you'd have 6 dedicated plus 3 visitor for that complex.
So that is 1 vehicle per household?
Typically,
One
yes.
unit?
One,
Yeah, 1.5. So it's 1 dedicated and then 1 visitor.
Okay.
These are
1.5.
minimum standards.
Okay.
So-
Where does the other half vehicle park? So,
Yeah.
I think the point you're trying to make, guys, and I was going to say the same thing.
just come, you want to come to the mic, Dave? Because everybody, like
That's a
a
question.
great discussion, everybody hears everybody, eh?
Dave Milligan, Orchard Drive. Back to the parking. And in my experience driving around and delivering in this town for many, many years, there's not hardly a household in Stratford that has less than 2 vehicles. You see what I'm getting at? So now you have no parking for people that live there, let alone parking for visitors at 1.5 spots per unit. So that parking thing should really be looked at in depth going forward, because where are they going to end up parking on the street?
So
Thank you.
with regards to the parking, we did look at how other municipalities have dealt with it. We're actually at the top end of how other municipalities deal with it. Quite often, other municipalities, in terms of visitor, you're talking at, I've seen as low as 1 visitor for every 4 units.
I understand.
So,
You can always
yeah.
do better, is
So,
what I'm saying. You don't have to follow every other,
You just have to look at Kelly Heights, where the 4 units are, where
Good,
the
just,
park both
could you
sides.
just go to your name and address, sir?
Scott McDonald, closest place on Kelly Heights, 18 Swallow.
Thank you.
You go up Kelly Heights now, first of all, you can't walk your dog there, it's a speedway. There's 4 units and 4 units and 4 units. And there's 2 people parked in their driveway, somebody on the grass, and a couple of cars across the street. And that's an example of what stacked housing or multi-unit dwellings would be, as opposed to a duplex or even a triplex, where they've got double driveways and everybody parks in the driveway or the garage. And as you probably know, going by any house anywhere, you got a garage, the car's outside because the garage is full. So when somebody visits, that exacerbates the situation.
Understandable, yeah.
We had the RCMP down there, the town did, on Kelly Heights, catching speeders going down there. There's no sidewalks, there's nowhere to walk your dog, nowhere to walk yourself coming down Kelly Heights. Over here, that may not be an issue, but I can't understand why that would be allowed to go in there when everybody all around it is a single-family dwelling. And I have to ask, I don't know if the next section we're going to be talking about, 730, is it like I'm against it, or is it just, is this different than that?
is different.
Yeah.
You can
So the one at 730 is for the specific development project out on Swallow. This is just to add the standards for stacked townhouses across the board. So this would deal with all areas in the town.
Okay. So somebody could come along to you, for instance, and put a house on put a place on Kelly Heights that's 10 stories high with 40 units. You still have to bring it to council and to us? Is that where we're coming from now?
Theoretically, yes. 40 units in Kelly Heights wouldn't be permitted. It's not permitted in the zone.
Well, this is like the doorstep to Kelly Heights, and it's infringing on Kelly Heights.
So typically, Kelly Heights is into the R2 zone. Multi-attached dwellings are only in the R3 zones, so it would have to go through a zoning change. So it would have to go similar. So the process for a 40-unit building would be the same process that the second application is going through.
Yeah. Again, not to hog the mic unless somebody else wants to speak, but why couldn't you put a mobile home park right next to Kelly Heights? Because it's not zoned. Kelly Heights is zoned for this, and that could be changed the zone for that because somebody wants it done. Is the developer here? Deco Regers or whatever his name is?
The developer he's out of country, but the representative who will be taking over is here and will be dealing with that at that second meeting.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike Wood, 156 Mason Road.
Thanks, Mike.
I just like to accelerate what Mr. McDonald had to say there. It's not always about building structures, it's about parking. And that is a big issue. It's a huge issue. It's an issue of safety. And it's something that, council needs to be very aware of that. And they also need to be aware of where their perhaps obligations lie. And it's not with developers, it's not with town planning, it's with the people who live close by and who are dealing with this every day. And many of us, and I speak for myself, of course, have moved to Stratford to have, a low-density home, a quiet neighborhood. Nobody wants multiple housing tucked in on top of R1 or R2 zones. Nobody wants that. I can't see it. And the reality is, those large structures, there is places for those structures in this community. There's designated places for big apartment buildings. That is where they should be with adequate parking between or behind the structure. And they actually complement each other. We have lots of good examples, and there's lots of areas left to do this. It's not that we're short of space or anything, but to bring large buildings in among smaller buildings, to me, that's sprawled expansion. It's the same as sprawled development or whatever you want to call it. And that's my opinion anyway. I don't think they should be anywhere but the zones that they are designated for if anyone wants to build them.
Thank you for those great comments.
Hi, Kevin Reynolds, resident of Stratford, 15 McDonald Road, former Director of Planning with Town of Stratford for 23 years. I live and work in the community. I've lived in the community for over 30 years and worked here as well. Commute through the town in all different, 20 years with the Crossroads Fire Department, commute through the town in all different areas. Parking is not an issue that's only related to any style of housing above single-family dwellings. It's an issue with people that are having issues affording to live within the province, within the community. Multiple families are living within single-family dwellings because that's what they're forced into do with housing prices today. As everybody's aware, we're in a very significant housing crisis, not just locally in the entire country. I actually commend the town for considering alternative uses besides single-family dwellings in areas like this. I think when you get into the facts, This is a two-story building. Anybody can build a two-story building in any zone in the town, including an R1 zone. So the height is no different than what's currently allowed within an R1 zone. I had a good discussion with Phil when we received the letter originally, and I actually think that the town should, I challenge the town to actually reduce the square footage requirement. I think that when you look at the footprint and it's identical to what is a two-story unit, which is one unit, and you've got two units stacked on top of each other, which is two units, I don't see the purpose in requiring extra green space. I do see the benefit in requiring extra parking. I do think we're in a much different situation with parking today than we were in the town 5-10 years ago. We have a very robust transit system. We have a lot of people that live in our community that do not own vehicles. They're not islanders. We all own multiple vehicles. That's what we've been known for. There are different ways for people to be able to live. I think this is a good proposal, and I support it. And I just want to make sure that somebody actually votes in favor of good developments.
Thank you, Kevin.
My name is Bill Giddings. I live at 9 Swallow Drive. As long as this stuff doesn't go ahead, I'll get out of here so quick it won't be funny. What a smozzle. You got a nice, quiet street, and people are thinking about the 8 households that are there, and at the end of the street, they want to add 20 more families. Figure that one out. My kids played in the area where these units are going to be located, and it's just a schmozzle, including 2 Swallow Drives that shouldn't be allowed. The town council has allowed them for the last year. 2 Swallow Drives. People going up and down, in and out, looking around lost. And, oh, big deal, it's the DOH's fault. It's a smozzle.
Thank you for those comments. Any more questions from the floor?
Talking about the 2 Swallows, I moved into 18 Swallow 9 weeks ago. 18 Swallow West, I call it Kelly Heights, because the Amazon and all the couriers can't find us. They end up in 11 or 10 or 9 Swallow Drive, and I say, hold on right there. I walk out the end of my driveway and wave, and I say, it's easier to leave your truck and bring the parcel down through that fence and drop it off, and that's what they do. If the plan is to extend Swallow Drive East and Swallow Drive West, you're going to have a serious issue there with the speedway from Mason Road to Bunbury Road. So if you can assure me that that's never going to happen, which you can't, I may be able to lean one way or the other, but not towards this stacked housing. I can lean towards putting the street in there. I'm the closest person on Kelly Heights to this new stacked housing, and I'm dead set against it. It's not the place to put it. It's not one of these NIMBY things. I think Mr. Reger should put it down next to 44 Stratford Lane where he lives and see how they like it down in that neighborhood of right by the water in down where, like, you know, everybody knows where Stratford Lane is? It's down Langley.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, why wouldn't he put it down there when there's lots of land down there? It'd be an ideal place for it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Again, it's just, like I say, there is lots of places to build those structures. Zone, why change it?
Yep.
There's no need to change it. We haven't got a land crisis in Stratford as yet.
Okay.
We have lots of land for development.
Yep. Just remind everybody, just come to the mic, state your name and address.
Hi, my name's Terry Davis. I'm at 12 Nightingale Drive. I've been there for about 35 or 40 years. I bought there because it was a farming community. In fact, the horses used to come up to the edge of my property. And it's a nice, quiet street. It's a real nice street. We have good neighbors. I'm amazed, like, it seems to be every couple of years we do a rezone. Like, there has to be some planning that takes place for future planning. You can't change the rules every time you feel like it. I mean, you've got people that just bought property over here, and some of them, some nice houses, some side-by-sides. What's the value of their property going to be when a block away you're putting this in? It's crazy. I mean, I'm totally against it. I think you're destroying the community, and I don't appreciate it, and none of your neighbors do. I'm shocked that you would do something like this, especially after being told at different meetings that we've had for zoning that, oh no, you're not going to have to worry about that. We're putting side-by-sides and houses and bungalows. That you don't have to worry about that. That's not going to happen, and look what happens. You guys got to get your stuff together, and you got to have a plan, and you got to stick to it. Yeah, things change in time, but not every couple of years. Like just because a guy decides he wants to put something in here, and there's a spot there, and he thinks that maybe he can put it in, you just don't ram it through and change everything to suit this one guy. Like you've got so many other residents that live in the area for long term. People just bought here. Nobody told them that you're going to make a change. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I'm not in favor of it at all.
Thank you very much.
I had another point.
Okay,
there,
Mike, go ahead.
Which I hope will be the last one, but going back to when the town was incorporated, I think it was 1995, and I think David could perhaps agree with me. There have been a number of very expensive studies by consulting firms about zoning. They all pertain to zoning, and papers and maps and diagrams and models were made, and communication and meetings. And it was to designate zones. Now, what's happening to our zones? Planned urban development. There was no such a zone then. There shouldn't be now.
Thanks, Mike.
Pretty well it.
Yep. On number 5? Yeah. What about online, Dale, or anything online? Oh, he'll know.
Yeah. I'm just checking if there's any comments online.
Okay.
No. Didn't get any comments online, so.
No questions or comments, right? Okay, we can move to paragraph 5. I can read it. Paragraph says, written comments were received until the end of day Wednesday, October 25th, 2023, by email to pro at townofstratford.ca or hand delivered to the Town Center Planning Department. Planning Board discussions and recommendations for the council were on October, that's front of our planning committee, October 30th, and it comes to council on November 8th, here, town council meeting for decision on November 8th on these amendments. So we'll be able, I guess we start at number 2 meeting. Oh, sorry, Dale.
Yeah. So I know there was a question, so just before we start, we will have information available, like if you're looking for handouts or further information, swing by the office during the day and we can provide you with more details. Unfortunately, we don't have anything here today, but we will have the ability, like if you reach out to the town, we can provide further details.
Bill Giddings again. Could you post those online?
We could probably post it up on a town's website.
Because there are a lot of people not here tonight that don't know what's going on.
Yes, yeah. I'll talk to Wendy and we'll get posted up on a media page for sure.
Okay, we'll start. Let's move your cursor there. We'll start the meeting number 2. Yeah, so I want to welcome everybody again. My name, I'm Steve Glenn, I'm Deputy Mayor of Town of Stratford. I'm currently now Councillor for Ward 3, Stratford T Hills. I want to welcome everybody attending to us, and welcome people online. If you want to comment formally on anything from tonight's meeting, the town will accept written responses provided directly to the planning department by email or in writing until the end of Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. Please note the comments provided on any social media platform are not captured as part of the written submissions tonight. This is the second application agenda this evening. After the presentation, there will be an open floor for any questions or comments on the applications. Questions via social media will be monitored and submitted to be read into record and answered. To ask a question, please use your comment field on either YouTube or Facebook where you're viewing the live stream. At this public meeting, you're required to provide your name, address when asking a question. At this time, I'd like to hand the floor over to Phil Ruff again, Town Planner, for the introduction of the second presentation this evening. Go ahead, Phil.
So, thank you. Yeah, so this is the second application. This is Zone Bylaw Amendment 45O. That's an O, not a 0. So this is a rezoning application to rezone the land in question from R1, which is low-density residential, to the planned unit residential zone. So it's the 5 lots in question, just off of Swallow Drive, which is the purpose of the rezoning. So we're going from, it's proposed to go from the residential R1, which is in this color, the yellow to the right, the pink or the orange to the left is actually the R2 zone. So it's actually a zone right in the middle into the PERD zone. So there are a couple of actually reasons why it's going to the PERD zone. One, the PERD zone actually permits more than one principal building on a site. You can get, if it's an R2 zone, it's 1 building per lot. The PERD zone allows more than that. So you can go 2, 3, 4 units or buildings on that site. The second purpose for the planned unit was based off of its density. So the planned unit residential zone has a density limit of 10 acres. So this is actually just a correct summary of the residential density per acre for zoning. So it's currently the lots are currently the R1 zone. So you can get singles and semis in the R1 zone. Density is 6 semis or singles and 8 semi-detached buildings per acre. In the R2 zones, which is next door, being medium density, it's 6 and 8 based on minimum lot sizes. Townhouses are 13 units and stacks of 16s. For the PERD zone is in between the low and medium in terms of density. So it's still the 6 and 8 for singles and semis. But then for townhouses, stacked townhouses and apartments, you limit to 10 units per acre is the density. And then the multi-unit residential, that's our high-end, high-density zone. So you're 8 for semis, 13s for towns, 16s for stacks, and 24s for apartments. So at this point, it's just been changed from the, or proposed from the L1 to the PERD zone. So it's going from a low density to a low medium density at that point. So the planned unit allows for different groupings of different types of units in there. I believe the applicant is here to go over. So in the packages that were sent out was the proposed layout. So access would be off of Swallow into a complex with 2 buildings. These are 10 units each, so 5 wide, 2 high. Some parking in front, and then a parking lot in the middle. So we did, as part of the notices, we did receive, I believe, 5 letters from residents. Some of the concerns raised, there was one of the neighbors had issues with the developments going in. They didn't want anything other than single-family dwellings and single-story dwellings. They didn't want anything more. one of the other residents had concerns with traffic and density in the area. And then there were a couple of comments raised, which have also been raised tonight, just on the disconnect or the two lengths of Swallow, that they should be connected. The town is in discussions, just a bit of an update on that. The town is in discussions with the province to connect Swallow. Because the long-range plan is to connect Swallow and have it run through as one road as opposed to two. So that's, and then we had a couple of inquiries from residents, but they didn't provide any comments. They're just looking for more information. So that's just a quick summary. Not sure if we want to have King Square come up and talk about their proposal at all.
So this is a presentation by the applicant.
Yeah, so what's happening, so Grove Developments, just to clarify, Grove Developments is the developer, and then King Square, is it Housing Corporation?
King Square Affordable Housing Corporation, yes.
Yeah, so thank you, yeah, so they would be operating the units once
Yeah.
built.
I have some handouts that I'd like to hand out before I speak. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Sure.
I just might need a little help.
Just remind everybody in the back there, we have some chairs up front. And admission's free.
Oh, you already have it? What a waste of, what a waste of a tree, eh? I'm okay. You give it to someone else. Anybody else?
site planning.
Oh, you want?
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Wendy. Yep. Oh, okay, great. Yep.
I'm nervous. I didn't expect this much attention. But anyway, my name is Bill Campbell, and I'm the president of an organization called King Square Affordable Housing Corporation. We've been in business since the early 2000s, and we have King Square Affordable Housing has two major projects. The latest one is a 60-unit building on 96 Patterson Drive in Charlottetown. We named it Martha Place because we received some support from the Sisters of St. Martha. It was very unique. It was featured on the Canada Mortgage and Housing website right across the country because of the feature we put in it, which was an outreach center run by the sisters, where they tended to the needs of people in the building, and it's so popular that it outreached into the community, and the community is taking advantage of it as well. So that is a very successful project. The other one is a 20-unit townhouse apartment building development on Kensington Road. It's a little division called Bill's Lane, and that is another successful project. And what we're finding is just on a day-to-day basis, we have an office in Charlottetown at 292 University Avenue. We're finding that the demand is really something we've never seen before. We have over 300 applications right now on file, people desperately looking for a roof to put over their head. And when you look at the statistics, the experts are saying that by the year 2031, I'm sure you heard this week somewhere on the news, By the year 2031, the Prince Edward Island population will be 202,000. That's what they're projecting. And the housing market is not keeping up with the projections. So people like us who are an affordable housing organization, we're trying to do the little bit we're capable of doing to help ease that demand that's building more rapidly than anyone expected, including all the planners. So we saw an opportunity over here to build, as you can see, those of you who have it, 20 units, stacked units. And in the drawing that some of you have, and well, you have it on up here, I guess, too. Yep. I don't know if you have this drawing or not, but it's okay. The stacked units are 2 pods, I'll call them pods, where we have 10 units in each pod. And we have a parking space, one parking space for each unit. And also, we have 5 extra parking spaces for guests. And we were hoping that this is something that would be aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood. Now, I appreciate and respect some of the comments I'm hearing tonight, you know. If you've lived in a single-family dwelling, okay, perfect, yeah. If you've lived in a single-family dwelling all your life, you know, you enjoyed the quiet and the peace of that. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're in the business like we are, like for over 30 years, and you have to sit and listen to the pains people have of trying to put a roof over their head, you know? The other day I had a chat with Dr. Jane. He's the chief medical officer for the QEH emergency. And he was telling me that one of them, he said, and I thought it was number 1, but he said, the number 2 determinant of good health on Prince Edward Island right now is a good home, a good roof over your head, quality and affordable roof over your head. He said, but number 1 is the average hourly wage that people make. He said, you know, you'd have to be making at least $25 an hour just so your children and people in your family could enjoy all the normal amenities of life that probably most of us in this room take for granted. I'm not sure. So when we talk to people like that, and when we do our own surveys, and we sit at a desk in front of desperate people trying to overcome the rent evictions and all the other issues surrounding housing these days, we find ourselves more compassionate than we thought we would be in terms of trying to find affordable housing units for people. So we're here tonight with this small little drop in the bucket of trying to solve what's turning out to be a major problem in Prince Edward Island. So we're hoping that the council and the people here will find some favor with this when you look at the big picture, the incredible demand that's growing, and if these projections come true, if this island has 202,000 people by the year 2030 or 2031, and if we're not allowed to ease the regulations in communities like Stratford and all the other communities across the province, we will understand more fully then what disaster really is, from the people I'm talking to anyway. So we're open to questions. We don't plan on building anything that's not only aesthetically pleasing, but is built with quality materials, with no shortcuts. 20 units that we figure we could build between $5.6 and $6 million. That's what it's going to cost us to do that. And we plan on looking through our waiting list plus creating a new one and vetting all the tenants all the tenants to ensure that we have quality tenants. When I say quality tenants, I mean somebody who will respect the rules and the regulations of the community and the parking bylaws and stuff like that. We're also going to, just as another bit of security, which most people have now anyways, is cameras in the common areas and outside of the buildings. So it's kind of a security surveillance system that we've checked out a number of those, and there's some really good ones out there that we could install. And also, King Square Affordable Housing has a maintenance team that will go around, they'll survey the property at least 2 or maybe 3 times a week, just to be sure that the rules and the properties are respected. So these are things we wanted to do, and if it's successful and it's not, doesn't have a congested, non-aesthetic look, well, it just might catch on. I say, once you start seeing, you know, the poverty that a lot of people are suffering and experiencing right now, and it's affecting the quality of their children's lives and their grandchildren's. If you don't have this quality roof over your head, you're not going to reach your full potential as a human being. You're not going to thrive well on Prince Edward Island. So that's where we're coming from. We're not out to make a lot of money. Our profit motive is not what King Square Affordable Housing is all about. What we're trying to do is make sure that islanders have an opportunity to reach their full potential. And I can answer any more questions you have. I should introduce my partner. Douglas Graves is here, and Douglas, you can come up if you want. He's the chairman of our finance committee, so he's the guy that tells me that maybe we can do this between 5.6 and 6 million. You might, if there's any questions come up, Doug, I might ask you to help me. Anybody have any questions or comments? Comments, even if you don't. Let him take questions. I just
Bill Giddings, 9 Swallow Drive again. Mr. Campbell, your purpose is exemplary. You've worked hard for many years on topics such as this and others. But why in heaven's name would you come into a small street like Swallow Drive where there are 7 families and you ask to add another 20 with only 1 entrance and exit to it? When my kids were small, there used to be a street there. In 1990, when I was at the town council, there was a street where you were looking for a right-of-way, I believe. So you're not welcome. I don't want you there.
Well, I really appreciate your comments, Mr. Giddings, and you know, I don't know if you're talking to the planners or not, but you know what you're saying makes sense if you're just looking at it from, if I may use the word, from a parochial point of view. What you're saying makes perfect sense to me. But the world has changed since you were a councillor. I would like, if you're sitting in my desk every day, it's not the same world anymore. People are desperately looking for a quality and affordable place to live, and they need people like you to say, yes, come and join us.
There's a lot of places, and don't lay that guilt on Swallow Drive.
Well said.
I applaud you for what you do, but I condemn you to put it there. It's not the place to put it. I'm at 18 Swallow Scott McDonald. It says on the back of this proposed development, proposed tree buffer. That'll never happen. When it says proposed, you can't plant trees and expect them to be 2 stories high overnight. You're not going to bring in massive 2-story trees to do it. So there's so many holes in this plan. Put it somewhere else. What do we need as a group here today to tell the town council not to do it? If we all stood up and said don't do it, would that be enough? Or do you need individual people to write and picket and whatever to make our point that we don't want it there? not in our backyard. It's not designed for there. It's like poking it in where it doesn't belong. What would you need from us to say, okay, you're right, we'll cancel it? Or we wouldn't bring it to council. We'll bring it to council and say it's a dead duck and put it somewhere else.
We definitely hear your voice and the voice of everyone here. Remember, this meeting tonight is to gather information. We're not going to be making any decisions, obviously. The process here and the results of everything we gather will be taken to planning board and thoroughly discussed, and planning board will make a recommendation to council after that meeting. So there's still steps in the process to go, but your voice is heard loud and clear, both in verbal and on paper. So we'll bring it forward for discussion with the planning board.
Thank you.
Hi, Bill. I'm Judy McIntyre, 11 Swallow.
Yeah.
We all applaud what you're doing and have great empathy for what you have to deal with in this whole trying to find homes for people. Okay, not loud enough? Okay. This, however, is not the place for a large rental unit. 20 rental units in the middle of a residential neighborhood is just not going to work. I've got a lot of thoughts that I've shared with my neighbors, and I'm nervous doing this, so I'm going to be reading it. We, the residents of Nightingale Drive and both Swallow Drives, don't want apartment buildings in our neighborhood, especially low-cost, affordable rental units. We recognize the need across Stratford, Charlottetown, in fact, the whole province, that housing is needed. But we have some very major concerns with this particular rezoning request. Some of these have been addressed by my neighbors, so they'll be repeated here. First concern is safety on our streets, especially with the only current access being off the older Swallow Drive. Many people walk and cycle on Swallow Drive, old and new, and on Nightingale. Seniors, dog walkers, families with strollers and small kids, older kids from the area. It's a nice, safe, quiet street to walk on. But there are no sidewalks. Adding 20 rented units with 20 plus vehicles, plus their visitors, would more than quadruple traffic on our street. That is just not safe. Walking my dog on the street is hair-raising already when vehicles come up from behind when there's no sidewalks. Imagine with 4 or 5 times the traffic. The province is responsible for roads and sidewalks in Stratford, and where do you suppose a sidewalk on Swallow Drive would be on their priority list? Even once the 2 Swallow Drives connect, adding that much more traffic will make accessing Bunbury Road from Mason and a completed Kelly Heights development a nightmare at peak traffic times. The roads just aren't adequately designed for this kind of traffic. It's already pretty crazy. Second big concern is, as a lot of my neighbors have stated, the adverse effect on the whole character of our neighborhood. It's an older, well-established, single area of nice homes with 2 duplexes grandfathered into the present R1 zoning. Some of us have been here for 4 decades, myself being one of them. And we've stayed because we love it just the way it is. We've invested our time, energy, and money into our properties. We all know that more housing is needed, rental housing included, but this is not the place to put a low-rent apartment building. According to a recent study on affordable housing in the capital region, available on the Town of Stratford website under Shape Stratford, affordable housing rental units are intended for a wide-ranging and varied mix of disadvantaged individuals or families. Mostly people who work, but for various reasons can't earn a living wage. Others, however, are people whose own undesirable actions and bad choices have put them in need of help. Which group will be placed in this complex? And who makes those decisions? I think you answered that question. It's your organization that makes those decisions. Affordable rental housing in general, by its very nature, can introduce a degree of desperation to a community that is totally out of character to the area. Renters have no vested interest. Homeowners naturally want to keep their properties and community attractive, safe, appealing, valuable. Renters have no such vested interest, so many of them would not be concerned with noise bylaws, speed limits, noisy older vehicles, keeping litter under control, looking after waste watch carts, etc. Apartment buildings do not age gracefully, and Stratford doesn't have any bylaws or covenants that would require building owners to maintain certain standards of appearance, upkeep, or condition. Yes, your organization, King Square Affordable Housing Corporation, would probably do a really good job of this. But what happens after the buildings are sold, then sold again and again? They will deteriorate. Our homes will be worth less. Rezoning to PURD in our well-established single-family area and in the new Kelly Heights subdivision will absolutely devalue our properties. The implication is that this is now a low-income area in general. Even a brand new low-rent apartment building will adversely affect the market desirability of our homes. And who exactly will be compensating us for this financial loss? This rezoning would also open the door for future rezoning of R2 and R1 areas. By the way, I haven't heard of this happening in Battery Point or Sundance Cove, just saying. When you have just bought a new home or have lived in a settled R1, R2 zoned area for decades, you reasonably expect that apartment buildings and all the negative aspects of them will not be introduced to infringe on your quality of life, your privacy, and your enjoyment of your own property. And the homeowners on the New Swallow Drive tell me that this type of rezoning was never mentioned when they built or bought their brand new homes, that having apartment buildings beside them was not part of the deal. With this rezoning, not only is the town changing the rules of the game, they're changing the game entirely. Your brand new home is worth less than you paid for it within months after you moved in. Very nice. That's not what they bought into. Is this not an act of extreme bad faith on the part of the town? I think it is. This proposed rezoning change from R1 to PURD is simply too big a jump. The residents of Nightingale and the Older Swallow don't want apartment buildings right out our back door for so many reasons. We love and are so grateful for the character of our little neighborhood. The large, mature lots contribute immensely to both our sense of privacy and to the pleasure we take in our homes and surroundings. Apartment buildings do not belong in this setting. If the town seeks population density and wants/needs these apartment buildings built, then they need to build them in the areas already designated for this. and then in future developments that are planned in advance to include them. The town needs to plan ahead and incorporate the PURD density model into as yet unplanned, unzoned areas. With this rezoning request, they are instead planning backwards. The new ideas promoting density can be incorporated into new areas, but not by zoning changes in areas where the character of neighborhoods has been long established, nor into newer developing neighborhoods where homes have been built or bought with the understanding that there won't be zoning changes occurring around them. It is not fair or reasonable to expect one group of residents to accept conditions that, yes, would be highly beneficial to another group of people, but that would be so highly detrimental to themselves. No government body has the moral right to do this to us. I think we still have rights in our country.
Thank you for those comments. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was well researched and well presented, and I appreciate that you put a lot of thought into everything you said, and I really respect that and appreciate that. The only other thing I can say about it is, and I'm repeating myself in a sense that, you know, in the continuum of housing, from single dwelling to multiple dwelling and going up is where we have to go to take more advantage of the density issue. You know, when you look at stacked housing, that is somewhere in the middle of that continuum. And that is a compromise that we thought, considering the gravity of the situation and the importance of having a quality and affordable roof over your head, we thought that is a compromise that a compassionate population like, well, I say Prince Edward Island, but we're talking specifically tonight about this area. You know, I was thinking in my mind that that might possibly be something that you could share, you know? You'd have to compromise, but I can appreciate that you're used to a higher quality of living, so you're prepared to do that. I'll just talk a little bit about what we were thinking of in terms of numbers. You know, we were looking at affordability. Like in Canada, housing is considered affordable if it costs less than 30% of the household's gross income. So that's what affordable means. Now, when we were looking at this here, we were thinking as a nonprofit organization, you know, that we should be able to try and get the rents in at about $1,500 a month. And if we did that, we would, you're talking then about $18,000 a year per unit rent coming in. And that would be, to reach that 30% mark, you know, the household income would have to be around $60,000 a year. Now, I'm not sure where everybody is on that number, but I do know that the average wage, the wage is going up to what, $16 an hour in the next few months? And I don't know if that would cut it for a 40-hour week or not, but then you need the jobs. The jobs are the big thing. So I just wanted to say that, you know, that we really are thinking about quality and materials and everything else, just to show some respect and appreciation for the quality of the single dwellings that are in that vicinity. Now, the other thing that the planners were telling me is that Swallow Drive will open up eventually. And as I think it was you said it, Judy, that somebody said that, you know, maybe it was Mr. McDonald, that we can't rely on on somebody saying it might be opened up. So what I want to say is, if you can find it in your heart, and I'm speaking maybe to the wrong group here, but if you can find it in your heart to realize that the whole country has to compromise their feelings about quality and affordable housing. The definition is changing all over the country, not just here. And we've done our homework, and I belong to networks where we talk to people. And when I talk the way I do, and I talk to people, I just come back from Peterborough, Ontario, where they have a huge homeless problem up there. They have 200 homeless people in a park, and they invited us to go up to be part of a think tank to try and figure out how they would solve the problem. One of the things that we noticed was there was 2 schools in Peterborough that were vacant for 8 years. So we started talking about maybe these schools could be converted into some kind of a complex that would have rooms for homeless people. And we got them really thinking, and they got excited about it. And when we left, we never built any units, but we gave them a vision. So they were so thankful for that. Anyway, there's no easy answer to this. You all deserve what you built years ago, and you came into the community because you thought for sure it was going to remain the nice, quiet place that you moved into originally. But I can't see, this is my problem maybe, I can't see the way the world is going and the way the population increases are projected for PEI. I don't see how we can afford to think that way anymore. That might sound a bit desperate, but that's where I'm at, sitting on a desk every day talking to people with tears in their eyes, wondering where they're going to lay their head next.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Question? Yeah.
Yes, it's
Your name and address.
Keith Mary, 4 Nightingale Drive.
Yeah. Thanks, Keith.
I'm on the board of a affordable housing project in Charlottetown, and I certainly know the shortage of houses and particularly low-income housing. That being said, I did ask the planning department, I sent an email, and I asked if there were other areas in the area that they're looking at, if it's been anything zone PERD, and they said no, nothing is. There are areas zone PERD in the city or in the town center and adjacent, let's say.
Exactly, yeah.
And I guess I don't understand why all of a sudden we're putting stacked townhouses right into the middle of 2 established residential areas. A few years ago, I believe the Gray Group sent out a plan for the town and how they perceived or how the town would look in, let's say, years from now. And then this Kelly Heights subdivision came along, and did I like to see it? No, but development has to happen. We know that, particularly in Stratford and everywhere. But I had no problem with what was happening in Kelly Heights. Single units, side-by-sides, and I noticed the other day, it did surprise me, right on the main street of Kelly Heights, there was a 5-unit townhouse. That did surprise me, but it's, I believe those units were for sale and people have bought them, or they are being bought. We're now into phase 2, single families, townhouses, or sorry, single housing, side-by-sides, and so on, and then there's going to be phase 3. What worries me now is someone's going to come and ask for a PERD designation on maybe phase 3 when we get up closer to the end of Nightingale. That being said, I don't understand why these lots right in the middle of a residential area where there already are areas zoned PERD. And the low-income housing, we have affordable housing for seniors, the board that I'm on. And another question I have is, with this construction, and maybe it's not something you're able to say, but will there be subsidizing from government to build them?
In order for us to do this, we're going to have a full collaboration of all levels of government and the private sector, if we can find it. And that's been the model we've used to build everything that we've built over the last 30 years.
Right.
As a nonprofit, you can appreciate that.
Yes.
It's pretty hard to do something without a bit of equity. So the first thing we look for is, hopefully the city, for example, the city of Charlottetown, for that 60 units I talked about earlier, they've given us a 20-year tax rebate. And that saved us. That helped the banks, Canada Mortgage and Housing, $11 million mortgage. They said, wow, these people have a bit of equity, thanks to the city and thanks to the land that was given to us by the province. So we were really lucky on that one.
Right.
And the location is perfect for the use that we're making of Martha Place, we call it.
I guess the reason I asked that is we were looking at building a building, and we were looking for various grants which were approved. The existing building we have was solely funded by us, by the organization that I'm with. It is now paid off after 35 years. The building is in immaculate shape. Our rents are $650 a month for seniors. Haven't raised our rents in 6 years, or once in the last 15 years. That's catching up to us now, though. Yeah. That being said, when we were looking at this new building and we got grant money, one of the conditions we wanted to lay out to the province was we have a history of vetting our tenants. We want to continue doing that. And they said, that's not possible. If someone comes in dire need of housing and the province knows of an empty spot, the province will require that that person go to that spot. And so we've had, we did take on 6 new people in our building over the last 5 years. We've never had any issues, but we did take on 6 new people through the province, where the province will subsidize some of the rent. And unfortunately, we've had to spend $16,000 to rid ourselves of bed bugs, and we've had to spend $7,500 to rid our building of cockroaches in the last year. These are expenses that are extremely high, and it's unfortunate, but that's what happened when we put people in that weren't vetted by us. And so I guess my only concern, why I'm up here and I'm rambling, and I said to Judy I didn't want to get up to speak because I don't like doing it unless it's something I know what I'm talking about. The question that keeps going through my mind is, if we have areas in the town now zoned PERD, why is this property so important? To me, it looks like a piece of land that's locked. You can't get at. So is there a deal being made, like, to get it? Like, I'm just baffled. Why in the middle of a residential area, why not put it in the areas that are already zoned PERD? That's the first question. And then the second question is, are you able to vet your tenants, or would the province come to you and say, we are in the need of, we have a family that's in the need, and we don't know the character of that family, and we could end up with problems within the neighborhood?
Well, we're selling it to the province by saying that we don't want subsidies, and we don't want to deal with subsidies. The subsidy is if we can create the miracle of creating a 2-bedroom, quality, affordable unit, heated for $1,500 a month. If we can do that, you can call it a subsidy if you want. We call it affordable housing. You know, there's no subsidy. So
no, I guess subsidies to build, like some people
Yeah.
will get $45,000 per unit to construct.
and we'll be looking at, you know, the income levels of people. We'd like them to be within that 30% range if possible. And I can't imagine having a poor quality tenancy if we stay within those guidelines.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, that's still creating you might call it a subsidy, it's creating affordable housing, and it's really, you really have to perform a little bit of magic to do that, so.
I don't think there's anyone in this room right now that's against affordable housing.
Yeah.
I think the big issue is why, right there, why in the middle of our residential subdivision are we wanting to change to PERD when over there where all the apartment buildings are, there's empty land, or there's area zone PERD, why not there? What's the attraction to this piece of land? I'm baffled. I'm just baffled. That's my question, and I'd like to have an answer sometime for as to where, with all the land Stratford has and the areas that are zoned PERD, why? That's my question.
And it's a reasonable question.
Thank you.
Can I ask?
Yep.
Giddings again. That question, Keith, probably should be put to council rather than to you, Mr. Campbell. If they're in charge of PERD, creating or destroying PERD, well then, why aren't they using PERD? Could I get an answer?
So in terms of the zone itself, the reason why we're looking at the PERD, one, oh, I'm not even on, okay, sorry. There are, like, in my presentation, there's two reasons why we looked at the PERD. One, we have a clause in our bylaw that only permits one building per lot in the R1, R2 zones. So it could easily have gone, like an application could come in to put into an R2 zone. R2 zones, with the first amendment, first public hearing, was adding stacked-on houses to the R2 zone. So the PERD was a zone picked, so it was actually a density closer to the R1 zone. It wasn't at the same density as the R2 next to it, but it was an in-between zone.
Would you be satisfied to have that at the end of your street if there were only 7 units on the street you lived on?
Coming from a big city, I'll be fine with it.
A big city?
Yeah.
You're not.
There are,
Now, here, we're not in a big city. We got lots of land. Mr. Campbell, I grew up with Sister Mary Henry, getting charity from her. We're not some big high-class neighborhood. And there's no reason why people in our neighborhood should subsidize your apartments. If I lose money on the sale of my property, I would write that off to Mr. Campbell.
I respect your opinion, sir.
If I can just add something that we already discussed, or I discussed previously, that there's no decisions being made tonight, and this will go through more review before a final decision is made. But I will say one thing. Any resident in Stratford can file an application for anything related to development, and we cannot deny the application. We have to accept it. So in saying that, in fairness to the democratic society that we live in and what we do, we take that application, we process it, and when it gets to a point of where the requirements are to send letters out and ask for comments, to have a public meeting that we had this evening, it's all about gathering information. Again, there's no decision made tonight. It's very important that we use this process for everyone to speak up, to provide their input, their opinions, their facts, whatever it may be. And that's a huge part of how we grow as a community and how we influence decisions and provide support for decisions and speak about ourselves and our neighbors. So please look at this as an information gathering session, and we'll take it as that, bring it forward, and have more thorough discussion at levels of planning board and council, okay? That's the best way I can say as to why we're here this evening. Nothing is being done that's underhanded or any other way. We're just looking at an application that's being brought forward. We're processing it in the steps and manner that we're required to do under our bylaw. Thank you.
One of the biggest reasons why I'm sort of dead set against it is because of the fact that Swallow Drive was not extended when it could have been. And I believe, and I think I mentioned that in my email to you, that the developer has another idea in his mind. When did this PERD start? Did it start after he couldn't extend Swallow Drive? Or did it happen before? So there's a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of people that I talk to who have some serious questions about why PERD? And why did this developer do this so late? Is he trying to get back at the person who isn't cooperating? Halfway down Swallow Drive number 1 and Swallow Drive number 2? I think there's a lot of stuff going on we don't know.
Thank
Well,
you.
some of it's coming out tonight, thank God, eh?
You have
Yeah.
a question?
Yeah,
Kevin?
Kevin Reynolds again. I'm having a recollection of a lot of people in the room I've saw when I worked for the town in 2005 to 2006, when we talked about living on the Mason Road and people that moved here because they wanted to live in the country. I challenge anybody who grew up in the country to tell me if you have sidewalks, municipal sewer, municipal water, streetlights, and now transit. Unfortunately, you don't live in the country anymore. You're adjacent to the immediate core of the town of Stratford. I think the unfortunate thing that happens in some of these discussions, and I've been part of many of them with my 23 years working for the town, is the facts get strayed. And that's unfortunately what's happening here tonight. I hear people talking about how they're going to lose value in their property. I challenge you to submit the evidence. There's a PERD zone at the opposite end of the Mason Road that was highly contested, 16 years ago or so, Dale, when it was built. It's a mixture of single-family homes on the Mason Road, 2-unit semis behind that, and townhouses on the backside of that. Everybody's property value in that area increased with the new development that went in there. Not everybody wants to live in a townhouse, but sometimes that's where they start. And then maybe they move to a semi. And then someday maybe they have a single-family detached home that they can call their own. I've lived here for 30 years. I have 3 adult children. And I would love for my kids to be able to live in this neighborhood, to live in the town. And I think that's what we have to look at. 30 years is a long time to say nothing should change. I think it absolutely should change. The population is increasing in the province. It's going to be over 200,000. Every time I hear the date gets moved up. It's earlier and earlier and earlier that we're going to be over 200,000 people. It's going to get a lot worse if we don't start thinking outside the box and be a little more innovative and a little more understanding of what's being proposed. I keep hearing this is being called an apartment building. It's not an apartment building. Apartment buildings are 3 to 12 stories. That's not what's being proposed here. It's 2 units stacked on top of each other. The units are smaller than most homes are. They're 2-bedroom units. I hear that there's going to be, 3, 4, 6 times the amount of vehicles on Swallow Drive. That's not the fact at all. You're not going to have that many people. No, I'm sorry. I've gone through a lot of this in my time. Traffic engineers have been involved in many rezonings, and you can't argue the fact. Is there going to be increased traffic? Absolutely. There absolutely is. Is it going to be unsafe? No, that's not fair to connect those two things. Swallow Drive will connect. The issue why it's not connected, there's a private landowner that owns the land in between. That's the only reason it never connected. It will connect when that land develops. Anyway, I commend you for your presentation. I think it's unfortunate that you're talking about affordable housing and you're still having to use the term $1,500 a month. the new minimum wage is $16 an hour, that's $31,000 a year. You know, I challenge anybody in this room to be able to live on $31,000 a year and make a start in a town like Stratford. It can't happen. And you live in Stratford?
Yes.
And when did you move here?
5 years.
That's right, and the law has changed in 45 years.
Yeah.
That's the reality, folks. That is the reality.
Doesn't have to be negative.
I just want to.
I never said it was negative.
Yeah.
It's the reality.
I really appreciate this process. I appreciate your comments, but I also appreciate Mr. Giddings very much too. I can see the value in this, in the process now.
Yes.
And we might have to have another meeting like this. But, you know, the more we talk about it, I think the more ability we have to consider some kind of a compromise. So that's all where I'm coming from. If it doesn't happen, it's sad for a guy like me who's got 300 people on a waiting list and trying to trying to get the right people to fit into a community that is used to a lot of independence and a lot of single dwellings. You know, I got great respect for that kind of thing. I had a single dwelling myself most of my life, but I'm in an apartment building right now. So I know how great it was to have it, and I know how sad it was to sell it at a price that I thought, not at the price I wanted, at a lower price, but I sold it. I'm in an apartment now, so I better be quiet and be happy.
So just want to intervene there. There's a question here from Chad Gallant online, Birchwood Lane. The question is, once a PER designate is made, is the developer then free to change any presented plan providing it meets PER guidelines, or must the presentation plan go ahead? The presented plan to go ahead.
Yes, so in theory, yes. So if a zone is changed, a developer could come in, change the concept. In this case, the big restriction is the density. You're still limited to that 10 units. So there isn't a whole lot of option available to change the design. It might go from, instead of 2 buildings to a single building, potentially a apartment, but you're still limited quite a bit by that density. So in this zone in particular, the density is highly regulated, and it's a lot lower than what could be in some of the other zones.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question?
Keith Mary again. Just further on that, so if something did happen, it was zone PERD, and then they changed their concept, could someone build an apartment building on that property then?
Apartment buildings are listed use within the PERD zone, but you'd still have to meet the development standards for that zone for sure.
Yeah, so it could be, you know, if the development standards were a 30 unit or a 20 unit or whatever, it could be done then.
So the density capacity for this site, based on the PERD limits, are 25.3 units, because it's 2.53 acres. So 10 units per acre is 25 units. So in this case, they're looking at the stacked townhouse formats at 20 units. They're under that.
Right.
In theory, if a developer, let's say someone else comes in, let's say you buy it, you could theoretically put an apartment on there, but you're still limited to that 25 unit maximum.
And I understand that's not the intent. I know
No,
what.
that's not the intent.
Yeah.
And I just heard comments from Mr. Peltier. Did you hear it on the radio? He's an expert that gave some advice to the PEI, Federation of Municipalities. And, you know, he was saying, you have no choice, folks. You've got to start going up if you're going to accommodate the future populations that are being projected.
Yeah. And I don't question that. I agree totally. Again, it's why that piece of land when there's other areas in the community that are zone PERD. That's
Scott McDonald again. If I could go up to the map for a minute, please.
Or if that would be easier for you.
If this development goes through, there's nothing to stop with the slippery slope to put another one back here. So I can't point. So over here, there's nothing, there'd be nothing to stop them from going the other way off that same street and put another stacked 20 units, and away it goes. Bill, you heard the expression preaching to the choir? We're not using the same hymn book here. There's nobody here except one person who seems to know thinks they know what they're doing, but we do not agree with you. There's a lot of people here that are maybe shy to come up, but I've talked to some of them already in my neighborhood, and they're right in step with what I'm saying and what Bill Gettings is saying, what these other people are saying. It's fine to say you're going to use great material. That doesn't make any sense. That's like saying, I'm going to buy you a can of soup. It's the nicest can of soup you ever saw. It doesn't matter. It's soup.
Campbell soup. No? Oh, sorry.
See, here we go. We're just getting a clown show here. This is not right.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for that. And
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but it is, Campbell soup is good soup, so.
Thank you for that. We really need that in the middle of everything. Nobody's got a problem with this, what you're saying,
Okay.
but not where you're going to put it. It does not fit. It does not belong. You can extend Swallow Drive. It doesn't make it any easier. You're still going to have 20, 30 cars zooming out either way in the morning. And you know, you're not going to be able to put that there and make all the residents around you happy. We've been there, some of us have been there, like they say, 40 years. It's the neighborhood, it's a single-family dwelling. And you're going to put in a stacked house. It doesn't fit. And like somebody said before, this PERD is designed in certain areas of the town. That's where it should go, over what we call the old home hardware area. That's where they should be built. We're not saying don't build it.
No, I know.
Take your developer and put it down in Langley or down there somewhere. See what they'd say to you. You probably get better land down there, better view, better access.
Yeah. Well,
But
you know,
we're not, excuse me? We're not against you. You can preach all day. We're not against you. We applaud you for what you do,
thank you.
but not there. Thank you.
Thank you. And like I say, this process is wonderful, and people might change their opinion, or they might soften up on their attitudes towards things. I'm not sure of that. I know that I'm being educated by you, Mr. McDonald, and everyone else who speaks here. So I consider this a really good educational process for us, and I'm not going to quit trying to build affordable housing on the island. I might, if it doesn't work here, it'll work somewhere. I'll be doing this until I don't know when.
Just one question, one further question. The areas in the bright yellow are the areas for the development. So when we're looking for a rezoning to PERD, is it specific to that specific area? Because he did bring up a good point. There's an area down below. Is that changing the area down below to PERD also, or is it just specific to that area?
So thank you. Yeah, so in this case, just the lots within the black square or the black shape is being proposed to be converted over to the PERD. Okay. So it's currently within the yellow, so it's in the R1 zone. So it's proposed to be zoned into the PERD. Okay. So
Thank you.
just those five lots.
Thank you.
Something else I was thinking about, and I mentioned this to one of my neighbors. If I wanted to build a convenience store in the middle of Kelly Heights, I could do it. First thing I'd do is I'd go around all the neighbors and find out, would you like the idea? And if they said no, why waste my time? That should have been done first. Whoever's doing this development should have gone up and down Nightingale and Swallow and part of Mason and say, this is what we're planning, here's the beautiful plan, here's the drawings, here's what's going to happen, what do you think? They wouldn't bother putting their presentation in unless they thought they could get the council to go against all of the residents, but one. So it's important to do your homework for something like this. Find out if the people in the area like it before you waste your time and a lot of money making all these fancy brochures and mailing stuff out and whatever, and wasting your time this evening and our time coming here. Find out whether it would sell first. But if everybody said, I love that convenience store, I can get my milk and my whatever, just walk down to it, and 30 of the 33 people said yes, I go to town council and say I'd like a zoning change, and I got all these people supporting it. It's pretty hard to say no to me.
Well, we sent out, 61 letters?
We had 63 letters go out, and I think only one bounced.
Yeah, come back, so.
One came back, and the rest had moved from that location, so 62.
But this, like.
Yeah, so the
Dale
notification
said earlier,
radius is 500, it's a 500-foot radius from the property. So
Yep.
if you, unfortunately, if you, and we, the way the bylaw is set up and the regulations set up, it only goes to landowners. So if you're a renter, unfortunately, you don't get one.
I live in Glengill Drive.
Yeah. So, yeah. So what we do is we take the property, we do a buffer around it, and then we send out to all who's on our files on that case. So I do want to just briefly address a couple of points that were raised. So this came out of Ontario, but it's applicable across the country and North America. So they just have some common, they call it common myths about affordable housing. So just some of them have been raised today, and then just a bit of backup. So some of them, property values will go down. So this is an issue that has been actually studied extensively across the US and Canada. So in 26 studies, 25 of them showed affordable housing projects do not negatively impact property values. So property values near affordable housing typically rose faster than property values in other areas. The 26th one was inconclusive in its arguments at that point. So 25 out of 26 typically do. There was one of the cases in particular dealt with projects out in BC, and they showed in a lot of those cases where there is some opposition, there's some concerns initially raised, their property values in the area actually increased faster than outside the immediate area. Another common one is traffic will increase. Pretty much with any development, any new development, traffic will increase. So typically with low-rise multifamilies, often the trip generated are actually lower than those for single families. That's been studied by transportation engineers for the last 50 years. It's actually lower. It's because quite often multifamily dwellings are geared to residents with lower levels of car ownership. That's often the case, whether or not it is in town. This is injured. The third one, common belief is it puts strain on public services and infrastructure. So generally, high density dwellings need less extensive infrastructure than new development. Features like piped water, sewer services, schools ought to exist. Also, higher density development and infill can provide or boost the larger customer base needed to increase the range and quantity of available services. So if you need additional residents it brings more residents in for, say, bus services, because it's based on number of residents near it. A common one deals with new residents won't fit into the neighborhood. So often future residents of new affordable housing already live in the neighborhood. They may be people sharing an apartment with other family members, who are struggling to pay market rent by giving up meals or having to walk because they can't afford transit fares. Inclusive communities provide housing opportunities for all. The fifth one, affordable housing won't fit the character of the neighborhood. So affordable housing must comply with the same building restrictions and design standards as market rate housing, and are designed to fit in with the character of the neighborhood. And then the sixth one deals with a concern over crime will increase. So there's a Canadian study that concluded there's no statistical evidence that supportive housing led to increased rates of crime. The future occupants of affordable housing already live in the area and are used to the area. So those are just some of the common concerns raised, and then just some evidence to clarify some of the issues. So
I just have one there for online from a resident from Williamsgate, Derek Krollmeyer from Williamsgate. I want just like to let the room know that there are more than just one supporter for this development. I fully support this development as well as the one plan for right behind my house. The more housing, the better. We are in a housing crisis. So that's from Derek Krollmeyer from Williamsgate. So he was online. Go ahead.
So again, Judy McIntyre, 11 Swallow.
Thank you.
On the report that you were just talking about, Phil, you say affordable housing, but is it affordable rental housing? That is a big difference.
So that's affordable housing, as well as it also took a look at supportive housing. So housing for special needs for those type of housing. So both rental and rental and owner-owned. I forget the exact term.
And
So,
owner
yeah,
occupied.
Owner-occupied. Yeah, that's the term I was looking for.
Then maybe you can email me a link. I'll send an email because I'd like to read that, please.
Yes, yeah, I can send it. And then it actually came out of I believe it was a report from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. They sent out they have a brief note on that. Yeah. They back it up with a couple of studies.
Yeah. Just low-cost rentals is going to, I'm sorry, Kevin, but I totally disagree. Low-cost rentals is going to affect our home values when they're right next door. Because, well, based on my personal opinion, I wouldn't buy a house that was right next door to low-cost rentals.
Do you call the 1,500 low-cost or affordable?
The town's letter. Hi, Anthony. But the town's letter didn't say anything about what the rents would be or who the occupants would be. So this is just based on what we had, the information that we had before.
Yeah, we're just crunching numbers, trying to figure out what we have to do to make it work. So the number 15 is on the board right now.
Yeah. And, okay.
Bill Giddings again. Phil, I can write a textbook and I can I can report on any study I do, but people don't have to believe me. And you just mentioned 6 different myths that some people think exist. And you say they're not true based on some textbook. Swallow Drive is not a textbook, it's people. We're people, and we have 7 families living there, and PERD is going to allow 20 more families to live on the same street. Wow. No extras, no sidewalks, no anything. Just 20 more families in a, not very affordable, $1,500. That's not affordable. Who's that affordable to?
I'm just talking about
Yeah, but I'm just saying numbers.
Yeah.
$1,500 is not affordable.
We couldn't build it if we received much less than that.
That's right, exactly. Are you on a bad trip? You can't do it? What about 900? 900's affordable, maybe, not 15. So why are you even doing it? You need people to give you charity.
Well, there are people that fall within the affordable 30% range that make salaries that they need a roof over their head. This is affecting all levels of.
There's people on PEI in co-op housing who only pay 25% of their income. That's affordable housing. Not $1,500, that's not.
Well, as long as you don't pay more than 30%, you're in the affordable range.
But it still doesn't matter, Bill. It doesn't matter. 1,500 is not affordable.
It's a relative term. In this
And
country.
why take a double tenement and put it one on top of the other instead of sideways and call it something different? It's still a pig's ear.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the next steps. The written comments we received until the end of the day, Wednesday, October 25th, at PRUF at townstratford.ca, were hand delivered to the Town of Stratford, Town Center Planning Department, the Planning Board for discussion. So, gentlemen in the front row, you said your address. You get to October 25th. You want to do up a letter and drop it off the town here. Appreciate it. Town Council the decision for these two amendments for proposals is going to be decided on November 8th, 2023, at our next council meeting. So I want to close tonight, and I want to thank you for everybody for the great discussion and the professionalism and the respect that everybody has for each other. And I know but it's great to have a discussion in a professional way and talk about it and move on from it. So. Thank you for joining us again this evening, and I'd like to comment formally on either presentations. The written comments were received until the end of the day, October 25th, 2023 again. The applications and comments will be considered by planning again by October 30th, the planning committee, and for decision in the regular town council meeting. So, the meeting's been adjourned, and I want to thank you everybody tonight, and drive safe.